Alright guys, in this video, stay tuned. I will talk about the benefits of intermittent fasting on all the different systems of the body. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so let's take a look at intermittent fasting right now. So, intermittent fasting is a style of eating where you consume all of your calories in a narrow window of time. So this can be either an 8-hour window, this can be a 6-hour window, this can even be up to a 4-hour window. So in that case you'd be fasting 20 hours and you'd be eating all your calories for the day in that 4-hour window. A more popular kind of regimen is eating for 6 hours and then fasting for 18 hours. That's actually the one that I follow most commonly, and I get really good results as far as energy, decreased brain fog, stabilizing my weight and blood sugar. That one's kind of, for me, been the best one. So as you can see, we have a ton of different systems up here. Let's start with the gut. This is gratefulgut.com after all, so we want to see what fasting can do for your gut. With the gut, we see an increase in diversity in the number of microbes that are in your microbiome. When we have higher levels of diversity in our microbiome, that means it's a healthier function. It is better able to function as a healthier microbiome with an increase in diversity. We also see a decrease in total body inflammation, and it's thought that this effect actually comes from the gut. The gut is a huge regulator of inflammation in the body. Next, moving over to the heart, our cardiovascular system. In the cardiovascular system, we see our triglycerides actually start to stabilize. So people that are high in these triglycerides in their blood, they have too much fat in the blood, these levels start to come down with an intermittent fasting regimen. We also see better overall cholesterol, so we see an increase in that good cholesterol, that HDL, and we actually see decreases in the LDL cholesterol, so that's great for heart health. Okay, and then moving on to the liver. So in the liver, we see a decrease in the amount of fat that builds up in the liver. So normally we see fatty liver disease with either poor diet or it's really common in alcoholics. So at that later stage of alcoholism, if you've been drinking for a long time, fatty liver can develop. What's very alarming right now is that we're seeing it in people who are 12, 13, 14 years old because of their diet. So intermittent fasting, there could not be a better time for intermittent fasting to come along. I think it's a great tool to help decrease the fat that's on the liver. We also see an increase in the liver's ability to regenerate just after running its normal detox pathways. It is better able to run those pathways through intermittent fasting. Immune function. One study showed that after just 2 days of intermittent fasting, we saw an increase in your body's ability to fight infection. Pretty cool. Our hormones, this one's big. So with intermittent fasting, what happens is our insulin levels start to stabilize. When our insulin levels are stable, our body is told, do not store fat anymore. However, if we eat a sugary meal, our insulin levels go high. That tells the body to store more fat. And then coming over to our hormones here. So one thing that happens, one of the probably the biggest effects with intermittent fasting is we see our insulin levels and our blood sugar levels start to stabilize. So we see a decrease in the amount of insulin produced in the body, and we see a decrease in your blood sugar and your overall blood sugar number. That starts to stabilize. This is important because insulin tells your body to store fat. So if you eat a sugary meal, it spikes the insulin. Every cell in your body gets told to start storing fat and start making new fat cells. So intermittent fasting can actually decrease insulin's effect to store more fat in the body. We also see an increase in human growth hormone. Growth hormone has a huge effect on stabilizing blood sugar levels. Very important for stabilizing blood sugar levels. It also tells your body to grow, which is great. It helps build new muscle tissue. And we see increased levels when the body is in a fasted state. So we see also a stabilizing of hunger hormones. Your two hunger hormones, the two big ones in the body, are called leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin tells your body it's time to eat, or tells your brain, rather, it's time to eat. Leptin tells your brain that you've had enough to eat and you're full. With fasting, with intermittent fasting, we actually see a stabilizing of these hormones. So one's not high, one's not low. So you actually have very normal hunger cues throughout the day. And that's very important because most people don't eat according to their hunger cues. They eat according to the clock, according to where they are, or they have a craving. So most of us aren't eating in accordance with our body's hunger hormones. So stabilizing those hunger hormones and actually feeling what it's like to be hungry and to be full is a really eye-opening experience. Something I experienced when I did a 5-day fast was stabilizing of those hormones, and you really start to listen to your body, and you realize you don't need as much food as you think you do. And then this one's a big one, fat loss here. So we see fat loss eating the same number of calories. Some studies show eating the same number of calories in a more constricted time frame. So instead of me eating 600 calories one meal, 400 at another, 600 at another, 400 later throughout the day, maybe 12 or 14 hours, I'm getting maybe 2,000 calories in one meal, and some studies have shown that's up to 2,000 calories is still effective for losing weight as long as it's done in a smaller time frame. So in certain intermittent fasting days, if I'm doing my 420 schedule, I'll eat a huge lunch. I'll eat a lunch that's up to 1,500 to 2,000 calories, and I won't eat anything else for the rest of the day. The next day I'll eat again at lunchtime. I'll eat in that little 4-hour window. I'll eat about 2,000 calories. And I haven't noticed any weight gain. I haven't noticed any changes in my energy level, any negative effects on my energy level. So it's pretty cool. Those studies show that. And then there's other studies that show up to 60%. Your body increases its fat burning ability up to 60%. So instead of relying on things like carbs or protein, your body starts to break down its own fat reserves. And what's so great is most of this fat has been shown to come from the abdominal area. That actually increases the amount of fat. Intermittent fasting increases the amount of fat that comes from that area that's burned as energy. Pretty cool. And then longevity. So a lot of the fasting research is actually focused on how fasting and intermittent fasting can affect longevity. So with longevity, we're talking about our health span. So not necessarily our lifespan, but how much life we get out of those years, how much health we get out of those years. And fasting has been shown to increase longevity, and the process by which fasting is thought to do that is a process called autophagy. That's where your cells are able to clear and take all the damaged cells and recycle them. When you're eating and you're constantly spiking insulin, you're telling your body to grow. And it's taking those damaged cells and it's trying to repair them. But instead, some cells that shouldn't be repaired and should be thrown out keep on growing, and then eventually a cell can become cancerous that way. So with intermittent fasting, we see an increase in that autophagy effect where your body's better able to clear out all those damaged cells. We also see with fasting, they've combined fasting with chemotherapy for cancer and have seen some really great effects than just chemotherapy alone. Fasting has been shown to decrease the amount of cancer cells that are made in the body throughout the day. So throughout your day, your body's constantly making cancer cells. It's also constantly recycling and getting rid of those cancer cells. Fasting, intermittent fasting, helps to increase that process. Brain health right here. So with fasting, with intermittent fasting, we see an increase in a chemical called BDNF. That's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This helps your brain repair itself and become more plastic, more malleable. So with BDNF has even been shown to increase the amount of neurogenesis in the brain, meaning making new brain cells. It was thought that the brain was incapable of that until BDNF was discovered and a few other different pathways. But BDNF has a huge role in neurogenesis and creating new brain cells. And then really interesting here is we see a decrease in pain associated with arthritis in intermittent fasting. So some studies have shown that just 2 days of fasting, pain levels drop significantly in people with osteoarthritis in the knee and the shoulder. So that was pretty cool. And the hip. I think there's a few studies out there on the hip as well. So, and I think that's due to the decrease in inflammation effect. The more inflammation we have in our body, the more painful our joints are going to be. And intermittent fasting helps to decrease both pain and inflammation. So really great effect there. So yeah, intermittent fasting, some awesome overall effects. These are really just kind of the tip of the iceberg, if you will, here, to what effects intermittent fasting has on the body. So this is our first video in a series of 3. In the next video, I will describe a few different intermittent fasting regimens so you can find the right one for you. Most people will walk into it a little bit slower, which is fine. Just as long as you start doing it, you can increase from there. And we'll go over that next video. All right, thanks for watching, everyone.